Serena keeps talking about her trunk. I don't know why.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Well Shit. It really is that simple. I'm Claire.
And I'm Serena. On this podcast, we help you to understand about your 12 universal needs, why they are currently not being well met,
How to meet them in ways that work for you, and how to consistently do so in quick, easy, and simple ways that fit seamlessly into your life.
We'll also help you to understand how doing so will have a positive ripple effect in literally every area of your life.
If you like what you hear, come and join the conversation in our Facebook group.
And enjoy the show.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, everyone.
We're having an interesting day recording today. It's funny. We just decided to have a little break for lunch, and I just had this salad, and it's a salad that confuses me every time I eat it because I find it mind blowing that. I mean, I'm a special kind of person to be confused by a salad. No, there's a reason for this. Like, I find it remarkable that two things that I don't really like, when combined, I find delicious. And it's like, it doesn't make any sense because I don't like the things. The salad, it was one that I discovered, unsurprisingly, on TikTok, maybe nearly a year ago now. And it's, the main components of it are celery, chopped nuts, or chopped seeds in my case because I have a nut allergy, chopped dates, lemon, parmesan, and olive oil. Yeah, that's an interesting fact. And this one was and I had the ingredients in my fridge at the time. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try this because like she kept going on and on and on about it, how it was the most amazing salad that she'd ever had. And it was incredible and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, you know what? Let me try it. And it really is good. I don't really like celery. Like, I'm not a huge fan. I will get it because it's like an ingredient in other things. By the way, little pro tip, if you have celery that's completely wilted, if you soak it in water, it comes back crunchy again, which I discovered yesterday when I had super wilted. Like, my celery was like bent over double, like wilted, because I have this, sometimes you get these ideas of like things that, like, ways to keep things fresh in the refrigerator. And sometimes I forget which one applies to which one. And this was one of those occasions where I thought that if you put it in water, it would keep it good, and it didn't. It just kind of went and so I was like, I think there's a way of reviving it. And yeah, it's true, if you like literally soak it in water for like an hour, it comes back crunchy again. And if you add some ice to the water, and if you like store it, I've now stored it in the refrigerator like that since yesterday, and then today I'll take it out, dry it, and put it in a Ziploc and everything. Yeah, so you can revive your celery. Who knew? I wouldn't have cared about that because I'm not really a big celery fan. I only have it because it's like ingredients in certain things. Like, I use it to make my chickpea tuna. Like, it's one of the ingredients in that. So that's why if I get celery, I normally make that. And I was like, I'm going to try this. And I'm not really a big fan of dates. Like, I don't mind dates used in things. And I don't mind if you combine date with like sun butter or something like that and freeze it. Like, that is like I give little bits of that, and that's like a nice little sweet treat. But dates on their own, I'm not really a big fan of the flavor of. I find them too, I don't know, cloying and dense and whatever. But these two together with the, like, I do pumpkin seeds chopped up in it, and lemon juice and parmesan, vegan parmesan, obviously. It's so good. And like, that's what I mean. I confuse it, and I'm eating it going, I shouldn't like this, but I do. So yeah, it's the weirdness of me. I mean, there's lots of weirdness. I mean, this must be the case for other people though. There must be things where you like combine things together that you don't necessarily like as individual items. And no, maybe not. Okay.
No, I get it. Like, I can't think of anything, but like, there's, that like the combination in your brain should be like gross. Sorry, I had a hair. Like, was it pickles and peanut butter or pickles and ice cream? I don't know what that pregnancy combo is, but like,
yes,
it's one of those things in your brain shouldn't work. I have never tried either. I love
Mhm.
pickles, so I'd be down to try. Like I could actually see where
Apparently,
pickle ice cream would like. They
soy
probably have it
sauce
now.
and vanilla ice cream is supposed to be a really good combo.
I've heard that too. I mean, salty sweet, that makes
Yeah,
sense, but soy
it's
sauce ice cream is like,
well,
no.
and
And
it's a little bit like the salted caramel thing. The very first time I heard of salted caramel, I'm like, ew, why would you put salt in caramel? That's gross. And then I tried it and I was like, oh my God, my life has changed forever. This is my new favorite thing on the planet. So, I mean, I get it, but it's like, but those are two things that I think they shouldn't combine, but I like them as individual things. Like these are two things that I don't normally like
I just
eating
don't
that when you
like.
put them together. Yeah. Anyway. But anyway, we're not doing shifting this into a food blog. So we're gonna instead, we're gonna sort of pick up where we left off on the last episode. And in fact, it wasn't the last episode. It was a few we recorded ago. So if we muddle up this was in the last episode that we recorded, it's because we've jumbled the order, because as I was editing, one of the episodes we recorded a little while ago, I suddenly realized that there was another aspect to it, which I think is sometimes one of the most common aspects to it that we had completely forgotten to mention, which is about like, no matter how good you are, you're the villain in somebody else's story. And actually, I would actually say in this situation, by trying to be a better person, you become the villain in somebody else's story. And there's two different aspects to this. The first is where if you are somebody who you've got to reach a point in your adult life, I mean, let's be honest, everyone in adult life has trauma. Everybody in adult life has stuff they've gone through. Everyone has baggage they're carrying, emotional things they haven't processed. If you haven't like been processing as you do it, like if you haven't been doing your work as like you reach a point in adulthood where you're like, shit, I got some stuff to deal with. And at that point in your journey, if you're in a relationship with somebody else, and it doesn't have to be necessarily an intimate relationship, it could be a family relationship, it could be a friendship. And when you are like, you know what, now's the time, I got to do some healing. I got to do some work on myself. I want to address some of the things that I've had. I want to figure out maybe how to do things better than I have done previously. And there's like two aspects. There's like kind of healing the challenges that we've been through. And then there's also growing and wanting to learn how to become a better person. What can end up happening is what happens is, and I'm going to use my hands to demonstrate something. So if you're not on the video, I'll try and explain it as best I can. But this is something that really helps, I think, people to see visually. And I have used this example in so many relationships. I cannot even begin to describe it. And what that example is like, so if you say you've got two people, and I'm like holding my hands next to each other at the bottom of the screen. And these are the people who meet before you do any of your work. So you meet, you form a relationship, you form a friendship, you form I mean, obviously if you're a family member, then that friendship's there, that relationship is there pretty much from the start. Or you form a friendship. And so those people create a connection and they form a relationship. And then a lot of the time what ends up happening is that one of those people, maybe both of them, will decide, I got to do some healing work. I've got some stuff to deal with. It's time for me to really start addressing some of the stuff I've got going on in my life. And what happens is that then the person that they were when they met and formed that relationship with the other person ceases to exist. Because what happens is that you change as you start to do that kind of work. You change as you do your healing. You change as you do your growth. You change and you start responding in different ways. You start reacting in different ways. You start behaving. You make different choices in your life. And what this often means, I mean, like Serena and I have talked about it, like Serena and I are not the same people we were 2 years ago, let alone 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago. I mean, it's quite terrifying thinking back and like thinking about where I was 15 or 20 years ago. I'm like, it was a very different time. We were very different people. But what it means is that the relationship as it sort of started ceases to exist. Like it's not possible because that doesn't exist anymore, because the second person doesn't exist anymore. Instead, a new person has been created, and this new person is at a different point in their life. And I'm mainly using the screen vertically because that's the dimensions I have to work with. If I go the other way, there's not too much because of the way our screens are set up, there's not much space for me to. So this is not saying like better and worse. This is just different locations. This is different people at different points in their life. Now, the thing about it is, if the second person, I'm trying to work around my microphone here and it's really difficult because it's right in the way of what I want to do. If the second person decides they also want to go on a healing and growth journey, there is the potential for the two new people to be in relationship. And sometimes what can end up happening is that when you are, I've had friends, like Serena's one of them, my friend in the Netherlands, Sharona is one of them, where the more that like each of us have done our work, and we've done it kind of in parallel with each other. And it's like we've continued to connect and cultivate our relationship throughout that process. And we've continued to find each other and find our ways to relate and what have you, because of how we've been doing our work and because we've been doing it in the same aspect, the same sort of time, at the same sort of pace. And it's not like it's like, I mean, I've been doing this work, at least 10 years longer than Serena has. So, we're not at the same place, but we're finding our way to still create a relationship and connect in the context of us not being at the same, not being in the same place and not moving at the same pace. Now, as I said, these two new people, there is the potential for them to be in relationship, but it's not a given. Like it's not a given that just because the people who met, the unhealed people, worked in relationship, doesn't mean to say the healed people will work in relationship. And often it doesn't, because like a lot of the time we connect through our wounds, and then when those wounds have been healed, there's nothing to connect on it anymore. So sometimes that can be the case. And then sometimes you have these amazing relationships where the relationship is even better because you've all done your work. And like, it's like, that's my experience with, I said, the people closest to me. The reason they're closest to me is because we have a better relationship. Like Serena and I have a better relationship now than we had when we, like 2 years ago, 4 years ago, when we first met. Because of the work that we have done. That is what has enabled us to have the kind of relationship that we have today. And so that can happen. So there's all these kind of different possibilities when both people are doing their work. However, when one person is doing their work and the other person is not doing their work, this is when it's very easy for somebody to become the villain. And it's not the person you would think it is. Because one person is going through they're doing their work, they're taking responsibility, they're owning their stuff, they're making progress, and they're healing and everything. And then what ends up happening is that this person, as I said, becomes somebody new. And what happens is the person that is not doing their work then blames the person who is doing the work for no longer being the person that they connected with and formed a relationship with. And they become the villain because they need to blame somebody. They've in their minds, and a lot of the reason they quote unquote need to blame somebody is because of their lack of healing, because they're looking for someone to blame, because blame is part of an unhealed dynamic. So that's a very common pattern that you see in people who are unhealed. And so there's this like, well, you're not the person that I knew you to be. And the way they see it, they've lost something. They've lost you because you are not the person that you once were. And the only person they can blame for that is you, because you're the one who made the changes. And
how dare you better yourself?
And it's heartbreaking because in a lot of these situations, like what we're doing is we're taking the unhealed parts of ourselves. We're becoming happier and more fulfilled and more whole when you go through this process. And also, like when you go through that process, one, you're not the same person anymore. So they villainize you for like changing and taking this person away from them. But the other thing they can tend to do is that a lot of the time we are bonding through our traumas when we are unhealed. And when you no longer have that trauma, I mean, the trauma is still there, but when you've healed that trauma, there's nothing to connect with anymore. They can't connect to you anymore because maybe you used to bond and connect over gossiping about other people. Maybe you used to bond and connect over trashing other people and talking shit about them. And it's like, if you're healed, you don't need to do that anymore. And you don't want to do that anymore, because especially if you understand about interconnectedness and how these sorts of principles work, you go, oh, that's actually negatively impacting somebody else's needs. That's negatively impacting mine. That doesn't help me doing that. And so what you do is you take away the means for them to connect with you. I mean, you don't actually take away the means for them to connect with you. There's lots of other ways to connect with you, but they just don't know what those are, and they don't know how to connect with them because of their lack of healing themselves. And go on.
No, you finish yours and then come back to mine.
It's and there's a resentment there, because they look at it and as I said, they feel like they've lost you. They feel that you've taken away the thing. And the reality for this is a lot of the times, because in these unhealed relationships, we are relying on and depending on the people around us to try to meet our needs. And therefore, what you're doing is, in their minds, you're taking away the meeting of their needs because they were using you to meet them. When in actual fact, it was never your job in the first place. But they don't understand that yet. And so therefore, they're going to blame you and make you the villain for stopping meeting their needs or masking their needs, depending on what you were doing. When in actual fact, you're actually giving them the opportunity to meet them for themselves, which is way more empowering, way more fulfilling. But you also can't force someone to do that. Like, that is a journey they have to choose to take themselves. And if they're not ready, this is what happens. I see this so often, where it's like one person's on their journey and they're trying to talk somebody else into it. And they're trying to convince them it's a good idea, and they're trying to push them and nudge them. And I mean, I've been there in relationships where I've been trying to convince somebody else to do their work who was resolutely not there themselves yet. And it is exhausting. It is like literally trying to walk up a hill with a boulder on your back of like dead weight, because you cannot want someone to do the work enough for them to make up for the fact that they don't want to do it for themselves. They have to do it and if they don't want to do it for themselves, doing this work isn't necessarily easy. Healing work it comes with its challenges. I mean, don't get me wrong, the benefits far outweigh the challenges, the benefits far outweigh the efforts, but it's not easy. You got to want it to go through those periods of time. If you don't want it, I mean, you don't even get to the tough part. You come to the first little like bump in the road and you're like, oh, it's too difficult, I'm gonna stop. And so you can and so it's only worth it. I mean, you can invite somebody into that space. I don't think Serena was like on that path when she and I first met.
Personal development.
The work we do now, like of any description.
Not that trajectory, I don't believe.
But at no point was I like, well, you have to do this, or you should do this, or I'm pushing you to do this. But through me doing me and Serena looking at me and going, like, I don't know what this is, but there's something here and I'm kind of curious about it. That was how, and I would share little pieces about the work and she'd be like, okay, yes. And that was like, she still was being pulled by what she wanted to do. It was just through me being there that she could see maybe there was a different way, and maybe there was a way that would be more fulfilling and mean that you're a little happier and a little less weighed down by all the traumas that you've dealt with through life. So it's like, I mean, you can support somebody in doing that journey if they want it, but you cannot do it for them if they don't.
That's like, you took the words right out of my head with that whole thing. Like, that's exactly where, yeah. I mean, no, that's fine. That was eloquently put. Maybe more so, probably more so than what I was gonna say. Something to add to it, like, we're saying this in the context of needs, and if somebody is on a personal growth journey and they haven't done the needs work, like, I could see somebody who's getting their needs met by somebody and has an awareness of needs, which would be a really weird thing to have, like a solid awareness of needs and like actively get your needs met by somebody else. But like,
well, you might be aware of needs you don't understand what's really going to fulfill your needs. Like, you might know that they exist, but you're not getting them well met if you're doing it through somebody else. And a lot of the time, unless you're working with us, you probably don't know that because nobody else is really teaching that in the same way.
Right. And there's usually a little, usually, I'm using that word very prominently. There is usually
often?
no, just usually a little bit of growth in the needs, like unconsciously, in not meeting other people's needs for them as you gain more of your self-worth, as like, depending on what element of personal development work that you're.
Say that again. I didn't understand that, what you just said. And I don't know how to help you because I didn't understand it.
I don't remember how I said it.
It doesn't matter how you just try saying it again.
No, I don't like.
I don't remember. You were saying something about like if you're doing like if you've got an awareness of needs, but you're still getting your needs met through somebody. I think okay. Let me try and paraphrase and see if I've caught onto your thought train. I think what you're saying is if you're doing some kind of personal development work, then you're probably going to be meeting your needs better and not relying as much on other people as you would be if you hadn't done any kind of personal development work. You might not be at a point where you're really understanding how to meet them and the ways that you would do if you work with the universal needs work, but you're probably going to be on a path to improving that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes.
That was cool. Yes. Thank you for bringing that to.
I was like, oh, no, that was like, I was following you to a point and I was like, oh no, I've lost it a little bit. And this is the thing is like, when it comes to, when we're talking about healing work and we're talking about growth work, it doesn't have to be working with us. It doesn't have to be doing the needs work. It could be therapy. And we've talked about this in the past. There are support therapists who I think do fantastic work. There are a lot of therapists who I don't feel are supporting people based on the number of clients who come to me who are like, oh my God, I've been working with a therapist for the longest time. I haven't made any progress and I'm working with you. And then all of a sudden things are shifting leaps and bounds in a short space of time. I mean, I remember that.
Don't talk about me like I'm not right here.
You're one of them. You're by far from you're not. Yeah, you're nowhere near. Are you the only one? But I remember the conversation that we had when Serena was like, "I've done like intensive therapy work for over 10 years, and through all of that, I maybe have taken 6 nuggets, and I literally get 6 nuggets in every single session that we do together." Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Oh, cool, okay," but that's not an uncommon experience. Like I get that from a lot of clients. So this is, and I also know clients who are working with therapists who are doing great. Like they feels like it's really making a difference for them. So I'm like, I'm not saying shouldn't do therapy. I'm like, make sure that the work that you are doing with whoever you are working with, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a psychologist, whether it's a counselor, whatever it is, and recognizing these are all very different kinds of roles and they support in different ways and they can provide and offer different support. That the person, when you start working with them, that you feel like they're in alignment, you feel like it's a good fit, like this seems like it's going to be a good fit, not just somebody who, yes, it needs to be somebody you feel comfortable with in the sense that you don't feel discomfort in the dynamic, but also somebody who you feel comfortable that they will potentially offer the opportunity for you to stretch and challenge you, and maybe somebody who's going to point out things that you're like, reflect things that aren't really supportive and help you navigate through those. So it is important that you find the right person for the work that you want to do. And there's lots of different versions of that. And so we're not saying everybody has to do the needs work, otherwise their relationships will never work ever again. That's not it at all. Because I know we've had clients who have gone through this work who have been in relationships and their relationships have improved through them doing the needs work. I've had people who have been in couples who the relationship has improved by them doing the needs work. I've had people in couples who the work has helped them realize that they weren't right to be in relationship, and it supported them in moving in the direction that was right for them, even though it wasn't maybe what they had anticipated or set out to be. I know somebody not a million miles away who had an experience of going through this, and it made a difference to the relationship. Know anyone who that might apply to?
Made all the difference to the relationship.
I mean, you want to share a little bit about where you were at prior to Joe going through this?
It was interesting because this was never on my bingo card, like becoming a human
None of
behavior
it.
specialist. Like, I mean, and even when Claire asked me to be part of the business, I never saw it going like this. Like, this was never quite what I had.
She never expected to be co-hosting the podcast with me. She expected to be back end doing images and slides and all the logistical work and letting me do this part, right?
Yeah, that among other things. But it's been obviously I'm here 200 and episodes later, and like I still wholeheartedly believe in the work that we're doing, and it still helps me on a daily basis and helps my husband, which helps our marriage, because there was a point where neither my husband or I were doing personal development work. Like, I had kind of
had any interest in it.
And I had a little bit of an interest in it. Like, I do like a little, I've always had an interest in human behavior. So there was that.
I meant as you weren't like looking to go and do this kind of work. Like you were like it was something you were interested in, like you thought it was interesting, but you didn't have an interest in pursuing personal development for yourself or for him.
No, I was in therapy.
I meant you didn't have an interest in you pursuing it for him, and he didn't have an interest in him pursuing no. You didn't have an interest in you pursuing it for you, and he didn't have an interest in him pursuing it for him. Whoa, that was way more complicated than it should have been. I think you had almost got in
there 2 times before that, but yeah,
probably.
We got there. That's all that matters. I mean, moral of the story. So yeah, no, I was in therapy. That's what people do, right? They go to therapy and it either works or it doesn't. And I'm lucky that I get like a nugget here or there, because I know some people who go that.
Yeah,
I'm not even hearing nuggets. Like, they might get little flakes of stuff.
I also know people who have gone down that path and came out worse for it, detrimental to themselves and to their relationships. And I was in a relationship with somebody who that was experienced. Like, we were I was witnessing it happening in front of me. So it can go as it could do with somebody doing my kind of, like, this is not like it's like the field is the issue, but there are some practitioners out there in every which field that are not necessarily the best, is all I'll say.
Yeah, questionable. So when I started this, I started kind of like, I slowly kind of like waded into the water of it. So every so often I come up with some personal development stuff, come back to Joe. And I mean, he's always been very supportive of me, but there was never like, I could tell there wasn't like a connection or a real understanding. It was like, oh, okay, you're talking about trees a lot now. Cool. And as I got deeper into the work, and then I became part of the company, and
sorry, I gotta say, if you don't know that the model of the universal needs is a tree, that's what that was all about. Like, that's why Serena said that. That's why I laughed a lot. I just realized, like, we don't talk about that all the time. So in case you aren't aware.
Serena keeps talking about her trunk. I don't know why. So before I actually, then I started the program, and Joe started the program at the same time. And
at this point, Serena was not part of the business. This was something you knew it would be beneficial, but you decided to start the program because you thought it would be helpful.
I thought it would be helpful. I wanted to support a friend. It made sense because at that point to me, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, like my roots, my trunk, my branches, like, it makes sense. Make it make sense. Okay, it makes sense. Let me see what this is about. So we started the program together, and life got lifing. There were a lot of things that happened, and it was at a very
festing.
Yeah, and it was at a very difficult point in the program where all of a sudden Joe and I both went, whoa. Whoa. And I laugh even harder now because, like, the whoa then that was like, oh, compared to now, but not to be scared, because
it's also done very differently now, so there's way more support through that.
Yes. So I was like, all right.
And I just want to jump in. And I think this is why what I was saying about someone's really got to want it to do the work. Like, you've got to really want what's on the other side of it. And the truth of the matter is, Serena was interested in it and she wanted to support me with my business and everything, but she really didn't want the change that doing this work was going to create. So the second
I wanted the change.
difficult.
I didn't want the feels.
Right. Well, but you wanted the change, but you didn't want it enough to be worth putting that effort into it. And that's why everything stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, honestly, Joe was doing it because you wanted to do it. So when you then stopped, it made it real easy for him to stop because he didn't really want the change on the other side of it either.
No. So we got to that point, and then Claire and I, we continued talking, and I got more involved with the needs work, and like our conversations just naturally we started getting this common language that only we had. And so it was like when we talk about it, and it all had a needs lens on it. And so it was kind of like I went from wading into like, I'd say like swimming through the water. Like I didn't dive in, but I just kind of like swam through, and then started doing more work on the back end stuff to help out, and became part of the company. And then when 2020 hit, what a perfect time to go through the program myself, so that I'm aware of all the content to the depths of what it is, because I wanted to do that because I wanted to be successful in my job. I wanted to further the conversations in the language that Claire and I had. I wanted to create a closer connection with Claire. There were so many reasons why I wanted to do the program at that point. And so I went and I dove in head first, deep dive.
I was like free diving into like open water.
Yeah. And so 2020, I mean, most people were around the people who they lived with a lot. So I'm doing this deep self work, and I was doing some deep self work.
And that's the summary of the self work that was happening in Serena's household. That's all we'll say.
So it got to a point where it was like, oh shit, like I know too much about my needs. I see where like I was meeting his needs. He's expecting me to meet these needs, but doesn't get needs enough for me to be like, I'm not meeting your needs for you. Like,
and also doesn't realize he's expecting you to meet them. And so many layers.
Yeah. And he had to kind of like, and because he's watched me on my journey through needs, what I would say initially, like it didn't matter what I said. It could be the most profound and correct thing in the world. The fact, it's like he knows me, as Claire said, like we were two people here, and now I'm way up here in just my personal growth journey. And it created some issues, to say, like it really did. And it got to the point where it was like, I don't know if this is gonna work, because I can't unlearn what I've learned. I don't want to unlearn what I've learned. And like, what do you need? And Claire started talking to him, and now when Claire would say something to him, that was like the word of Claire.
Well, I think that there was a point, there was a bit between this where it reached a crunch point. And I mean, it really was the fork in the road. And I'd stayed out of it. And then I kind of, as Serena's friend, not as my work, there was a little intervention that was had. And I basically told him some home truths. And not from a like criticism standpoint of like, what the fuck are you doing? From a, I love you both. And if something doesn't change, this is not going to be sustainable. And I'm here if I can help, but I'm not doing it for you. Like I can only help if you want it, if you want help. And I think that was the point at which, because when we had that conversation, he realized I understood more about him and about you and about your relationship than he realized. And at that point, then he would start to listen almost like whenever I said anything, because he was like, oh, she actually knows what she's talking about. I'm like, yeah, it's almost like I do it for a living.
Right. So then he wanted to go through the program. And when he went through the program, like he started learning the things, and now things are like, I mean, it just worlds different in the positive aspect of it. Like, I mean, like I said, we have conversations about needs. I never thought that I was gonna, like, we were on a motorcycle ride through this beautiful like Canyonland country, and we're sitting there talking on our motorcycle microphones about needs, about content for podcasts, like what. And it's his desire to that really got him to that point. But it could have been really easy for him to vilify me, and I think he did for a while, which was like,
I think he resented you.
Yeah, and it was like, well, what the fuck, this isn't the person I married. Like why is she talking about this, that, and this? Like, that's not us, when it solidly was us. And then after going through the program and seeing what I've put into the program, he was like, oh, I guess like you do kind of know what you're talking about. I'm like, kind of. It's like, yeah, like welcome to the party.
and the thing is, it's like this is and the relationships that tend to survive these kind of big changes in the individuals are the ones where there is some kind of like, there's some kind of meaningful shift on both sides. As I said, like the original relationship it's not going to survive long term, but also where there is an intention and effort towards that relationship. Like, so like I have another friend of mine where we came to that similar kind of fork in the road in our relationship. And I wouldn't say that they've gone through a self-growth journey in the same way as we have, but they also have, because of the things that have gone on in their life, like, and how they've approached the things that have gone on in their life and the things that they've chosen to do. And we reached the same point and we were like, okay, we are different people than the people we were when we met. Do we still want to be in relationship with each other? Are we still compatible to be in relationship with each other? And we figured out, yeah, we probably were compatible. We just had to change our expectations of the relationship, change how we were operating in relationship. And we both put effort into doing that. And that's one of those things that really makes the difference. I think something else I want to just mention here, that Serena and I were talking about earlier when it comes to this, is that also, just because both people are on a growth journey and both people are on a healing journey, doesn't mean to say that it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows for the relationship, because it very much depends on what you are healing and what is negatively impacting the relationship. So, for example, I don't want somebody coming up and going, oh, hey, I've been in therapy for 10 years and my relationship still fell like, and they were in therapy for 10 years and our relationship still fell apart. Well, that doesn't, as I said, there's the potential for a relationship with these two new people. But also, if you're healing your childhood trauma around being bullied, for example, but the thing that was affecting your relationship and the biggest thing that would have, the biggest healing with you as an individual that would have positively impacted the relationship would have been healing some of the dynamics around your family, then healing one doesn't mean to say that the other is automatically going to be sorted. Now, depending on the kind of work, I mean, like, for example, we know that from the needs work standpoint, you can come to us for needs work, for intimate relationship, for family relationship, for friendship, for your relationship with yourself. And the chances are, if you do the work around one set of needs with one thing, yes, there is still potential work to do in those other areas. But there's a good chance that what applies in one area is going to have a really significant impact in the other one. And then you can just focus on the specific little extra things that need to be supported in that one area. So like if you have someone who comes to, we have someone who comes to us because they've got an issue with their working life. Normally addressing the needs work will have a positive ripple effect in their friendships, their family, their relationship with themselves. And then there might be something that they've got a particular issue in that relationship. That issue still needs to be dealt with, but you've now got the resources and you're now not as triggered because your needs are well met. So you're in a better place to be able to address those issues and deal with those things. It looked like you were leaning ready to add something. So one of the ways that you trying to kind of be a better person can lead to you becoming the quote unquote villain in somebody else's story is when you kind of take yourself away from them because you become a different person. The other way that this can show up is when you becoming a better version of yourself makes them feel inadequate by comparison. Now, there's a number of different ways this can show up. So, for example, if somebody is in a situation where there's like, they have this belief system that there's no way out, there's nothing's going to improve the situation, nothing can be better. And then you do the work and you do the thing that they were trying to convince themselves was impossible. They can't convince themselves it's impossible anymore because you've done it. So that's one way this can show up. One of the more common ways that this shows up is that if you are somebody who, let's use some of the examples we were talking about earlier. So if you have a friendship, for example, where you are used to connect by shit talking your husbands, for example, which is very, very common. Like if you have a friendship where the bond you create is by, oh God, you'll never guess what he did this week. You never guess what he did last week. Oh God. How again and again, like this is a very common pattern. And then what happens is if one person does the healing and realizes actually every time I do that, I'm undermining my relationship because I'm actually using the putting my partner down as a way of trying to create connection with somebody else. I'm not talking about what's going on in my relationship to get support, to get help with improving it. I'm just using talking badly about them to try to create connection with somebody else. And in fact, every time I do that, I'm actually undermining our relationship. I'm damaging it. And I'm actually putting us in a position where things are going to be worse for us. So if I heal the need to do that, where I don't need that in order to connect with other people anymore, because the needs I'm trying to meet by trying to talk shit about somebody else to connect with somebody else, I'm getting met in other ways. Now I no longer need to shit talk my husband. And also I don't want to. So if somebody then, the same person comes to you and is like, oh, you'll never guess what happened. Da, 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 da. Even if you don't challenge them in what they're doing, if they're like, oh, so what's yours been up to? And you're like, actually, I've realized, I mean, you don't say this place out loud, but if you've internally realized that actually it's going to be better for your relationship to focus on what they're doing well and focus on the things that you can do to improve the relationship. If you start focusing on that part, that's not that they're not going to bond and connect with you over that, because what the bond and connection was over a shared experience. So if you're sharing a different experience, they can't connect with you in the same way anymore. And in fact, if in this instance, if you're saying, well, my partner's done all these amazing things, and they've said, oh, my partner's doing all these shit things, that's going to make them feel even worse about themselves by comparison. But so often what happens is they then look at you and they go, oh, well, I'm either, what they try and do is they demonize what you're doing. Oh, I see you've been Mrs. Goody Two Shoes. Like, I see what you're trying to do. Like, that's you're not better than me kind of thing. Or they internally go, well, she's better than me because she's not doing that. And like, what's wrong with me? Why do I need to do this all the time? Shame spiral, undermining my needs. But how that normally manifests is that while subconsciously that's what we are thinking, consciously we don't want to name that that's what we're thinking, because that makes us feel worse about ourselves. So consciously they can be like what a bitch, like she's completely changed, she's not the same person I knew anymore. But actually that's because we feel inadequate by comparison with them. And the very fact that there's the comparison thing happening is an indicator of the fact that there are unmet needs. Like if your needs are met, you don't need to compare with anybody. But so often people look at somebody who is they perceive as being better than them, and they make them the villain as a result of it. Great example of this is I talked about the Married at First Sight Australia on a few episodes ago, or from now, depending where this ends up slotting in the sequence. And there is one person in there who went into the experiment very successful. They had a significant social media following. They had a job. They had a business. They would do it they were doing a lot of. They were a content creator. They were doing really good work. From what I can gather, I've seen their work personally, but this is the kind of perception. And the other women in the experiment who felt inadequate next to this person because they saw her as prettier or thinner or more successful or more liked or more popular or whatever the word was, whatever the measure that they were using was, as a result, they demonized that person and they set them out to be the villain. I'm like, oh, she's such a bitch. Oh, la, la, la. And it's so obvious that they're making her out to be the villain because her mere existence is causing them to feel inadequate about themselves, rather than looking at that going, wow, that's really inspiring. Like, I wonder how she did that. Like, I wonder what I could do to create a similar kind of outcome. How could I move myself in that direction? Which is an incredible thing you can do. Like that's a great way of looking at these situations. Like, there's nobody in the world who's going, well, I'm done. I've got all the things, I've done all the things and everything's awesome. And there's nothing that I would like to grow or improve on. If you see somebody else who's doing the thing that you want to improve on, like, you can use that as inspiration to motivate you towards creating a better outcome for yourself. But most people don't want to put that effort in. Most people don't want to, or they don't believe that they can, or they don't believe that it's possible for them or whatever. And so rather than putting the effort into moving themselves in that direction, they would rather try and pull down somebody who's already there because of their own inadequacies, insecurities, and unmet needs. It's pretty fucked up. I'm not going to lie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when the villain comes
pretty
out,
common.
Very common. Very common. And the sad thing about all of these dynamics, whether we're talking about the ones we talked about in this episode or the ones we talked about in the last episode, is that a lot of people set the storyline in stone. Mm-hmm. And they say, this is this person's role, this is my role, and they continue to play it out. They continue to create the same storyline by how they operate within it. And as a result of that, they end up in the same position they've been in, and chances are the same position they've been in is not a good one. The truth of the matter is, you can change the storyline, but it requires effort. It requires intention. It requires believing it's possible to change the storyline. Mm-hmm. Like, you've got to believe it's possible. And sometimes it does require somebody else's participation. You can't change a shared storyline just by yourself. Like, you can change your storyline by yourself, but if somebody else is committed to seeing you as a certain character in the story, there's very little you can do in order to change that.
I always find it's kind of interesting, like, if somebody vilifies, right?
Either work. Like,
either
both are true. Yeah.
If somebody vilifies me, vilifies Claire, vilifies somebody in my close circle, my family, whatever, whoever they may be going after, and it seems unwarranted for whatever reason, and you look either back in their story or you wait a little bit, have a couple more chapters go by, and you see another villain pop up, and it's the same story, and then that villain disappears, and then another villain pops up, and it's the same story. Like, you kind of start seeing a pattern, and like some people just have a chapter book of how they defeat all the villains, or they're so like, oh, poor me. Like, there's always somebody trying to ruin my happy ending. No, get out of your own fucking way.
Like, right. And the truth of the matter is that stories can change. Characters can change. Like, it's interesting. Like, I'm rewatching Buffy the Vampire Slayer at the moment. And there's a character that is literally a demon, literally the villain in the beginning, and actually becomes the hero or one of the heroes by the end. And that journey from one place to another, it's not a straight line. It's fucking messy. And it's not an easy one to navigate, and it's not foregone conclusion that just because somebody's trying in this direction, that's going to get them to this destination. But the characters, I find that characters in life are a little bit like characters in stories, which are, if they just play a single role and that's all they play, they're kind of a boring character. If they try different things and they learn and they stumble and they make mistakes and they learn and grow and change and evolve and expand, those are the more interesting characters, both in stories but also in life. And part of the challenge we have in our society is we're so afraid of failing, because failing has been like ruled as like absolutely unacceptable. It's the worst thing you can do. Well, and the truth of the matter is that a lot of the time, the only way, like, you only learn by being willing to fail. Like, you aren't gonna, I don't know, you're never going to learn to walk a tightrope if you're not willing to fall off several hundreds or thousands of times, because it's in the practicing and it's actually in the falling that you learn how to stay up, because you realize, oh, if I do this, that means I fall, which means if I stop doing that, then maybe I stay up. And it's the same is true with anything else. Like, you've got to be willing to make mistakes in order to grow and in order to learn and expand and become better at whatever it is. And so I think that so often we're afraid of failing, so we stick to the things that we know. And if what we know is being a victim, then we stay to the story of being a victim. And if we know the story of playing the villain, we will continue to play the villain, even if it's not a role that we actually really enjoy. And the interesting thing, so like Serena raised this before we got on and started recording, is that part of the challenge people sometimes have with shifting their perception of villainhood is that if they recognize and name and own that the person who they have been villainizing is not a villain, they have to recognize that they are the villain in their own story. It's hard to, and by what we mean by that can take two forms. Either it can be, I've done this to myself. I've been the one creating this victimhood for myself. And so I've actually been the villain to myself. Or I have been creating this perception of somebody that is completely not true. So I'm actually the villain to them because I've made them a role that they are not. And it's tough, like, as somebody, like, owning and like your mistakes. And it's interesting, it reminds me of an experience I had many years ago. And I had met somebody's partner for the first time. It was somebody I was relatively close with, and this person just didn't seem to care that I was important to this person. They didn't seem to be making any effort. They didn't seem to be trying. And I'm like, I don't like that, because if you're not going to try with the people who are close with this person, then it seems like you're not valuing the person and therefore valuing the people close to them and wanting them to like you and wanting to form a good relationship with them. And I really didn't like them for a long time. And I villainized them. And I was like, I don't like this person. I don't like how they're showing up. I don't think that they're good for this person, blah, 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 blah. And then months later, there was a conversation that took place. And I suddenly realized one of the first things I had said to them is, I just want you to be yourself around me. Like, don't, like, I know that I'm close to this person, but I just want you to feel comfortable. I want you to be yourself. And at that moment, I was like, fuck. I was complaining and criticizing them and villainizing them for not putting in a special effort with me when I told them not to put a special effort in for me.
It happens.
And I was the villain in the story because I had villainized them. I had caused impact to other people around me because of my perception. And I remember the conversation like yesterday. And I remember I held my hands up and I went, this is all me. I just had that moment of like, no, this was me. This is my fault. It was completely my mistake. I apologized. I did what I could to make amends. And I was like, okay. And the truth of the matter is, it's tough to do that, but it provides you the opportunity to write a new story and take your character in a new direction. And it provides opportunities for other people's characters as well. Like in that moment, I rewrote my relationship with that person, my relationship with the person that they were with. I changed the influence I was having on that relationship. I changed my, like who I was in that moment, because that was like moment of like, I'm not infallible. Like I make mistakes. And I saw what an effect it had. The moment I said that and the moment I owned it, everything changed for the better in that moment. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like if I like, and not like I want to fuck up so that I can have those moments. I'm not saying that, but when I have owning that, it made it better for everybody. And everything became better from that.
I think there's a step in there that you should give yourself credit for is you also, I mean, it wasn't something you were talking about to every person you came across, but obviously being one of your close people, like I was getting the frustrations of what was happening. And the second that happened, after you talked
this is interesting because we didn't know each other with the situation I'm talking about. So I don't know which one you're talking about. We hadn't met at this point in my life.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking of...
Carry on with what you're saying, because it doesn't invalidate what you're about to say.
It doesn't invalidate it. I may be compressing two different stories in my head, which I think is what I'm doing now that I'm going back through. And this has happened in other situations, and it's still the same thing where you were the villain and you came to me and said, you know, this situation happened and I had to like, you know, I had to eat it for a minute because like I was wrong and this is why I was wrong. So that there wasn't a story in my head that was completely
false.
Fiction. False.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And that's an
and the truth of the matter is that's exactly what I did at that point in the time. Like there were only a few people who knew what was going on. Most of them were in the room when the conversation happened. And then there was one person outside of it, and I had the conversation with them afterwards. I was like, it was just completely on me. And you're right, that's not easy to do. And it's an important part of the process, but it also makes everybody trust you more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you're willing to do that when it's tough with somebody else, you know that that person would be willing to do it if it happened with you as well.
And I do see what happened in my brain.
Okay.
But it did. It compressed two different stories together that would have made sense. And I was like, wait a minute, that is not how that story ended. But it has happened in that situation. And there's so many people telling tall tales about what they think some villain has done because nobody's cleared it up. Like I've been in situations before people were like, oh, you guys are talking again, like you're friends again, and it's like, yeah, we figured it out, whatever, blah blah blah. And they're like, oh well, I thought this. They're on like 3 chapters ago. It's like, oh no, like that's not a thing.
More importantly, they were 3 chapters ago, but now they're 3 chapters down a completely different story in a completely different book that has got nothing to do with reality. And that's the reason, like, it's so important to notice and own where you are participating in these stories. Like, where are you making somebody the villain? Where it's not, I mean, and it's important to say here, it's okay to name abusive behavior, to name harmful behavior, to name problematic behavior. It's okay to call that out and say, this is not okay. And this person engaging with this is not okay. And I don't want to associate with that person as a result of it. That is perfectly okay. What we're talking about in these episodes, and we probably should have put that at the beginning of the first episode, is that we're talking about when harm hasn't been done, but somebody is being painted as the villain because of the other person's unhealed wounds, because of the other person's perceptions or unmet needs or whatever it is. And in doing that, they are creating a villain so that it makes the story more convenient, more easy, more comfortable, or it means that they have less to do to actually resolve it. And this is one of the things that I find, like, I just wish more people understood that when you first start figuring out how to address things when you fucked up, yeah, it's tough and it's uncomfortable. But
don't we have an episode on that?
Probably somewhere. But oh my God, once you get used to doing it, like, it doesn't mean to say you don't go, I don't care if I upset anybody because I know how to deal with it. Mm-hmm. Like, Serena and I had a situation just today, like before we started recording, where I got on and I owned something that was my responsibility and I apologized for it. And it's like, it's not something current. It's not something big. It's not something that I could have easily got away with not having that conversation. Like, Serena would never have needed to know. But the truth of the matter is, I don't want anything standing in the way of our friendship. And I know that she trusts me more because we had that conversation. And I know that we are more connected because we had that conversation. And it's like, it's so, and like, we're going to do an episode on this soon where we talk about how, like, owning and naming and taking responsibility for the things that you have done and the mistakes you have made is for you. You're not doing it for the other person. I think we think that that's what's happening in our society, is that we're doing it like to make it right for the other person. It's like, no, you're doing it for you. Yes, they're going to benefit from it. And yes, they should benefit from it if you've harmed them. And the focus needs to be on them. But what it does to your soul and your peace of mind, being able to know I'm good with the world and I'm good with what I'm doing and I'm good with my friends and the people closest to me. And yeah, fucked up. Oh shit. I had my I had my villain cape and mask on, or I dressed this person up. They were unrecognizable. Like, they had horns, they had hooves, they had, you name it. They were like laser beams coming out of their eyes. And like, actually that was just a filter I was seeing them through, and it had absolutely nothing to do with reality. Yeah.
I'm thinking of a situation where that totally popped up, and it was long before we met, and I'm just like, I'm giving myself a little pass me a little acknowledgement, because I fucking scorched earth, like went scorched earth on this person, and I realized that I was given misinformation, and I had to go to that person and was like, so there's this thing, and I don't think I would have even had anywhere the concept that it would have been for me. But had I not done this is a person that I came into contact with fairly frequently, and had I not done that, any time that I saw them, it would be here in my head, like, oh, you should say something, you should let them know that you know the real situation, and that will eat at you. Like, it's super uncomfortable to be in that space and be like, so you know this, like, I mean,
right. And actually, we have an episode coming very soon. A couple of episodes coming very soon, actually, where we're going to talk about shoulds. We know because we've already recorded them.
I was like, do we?
And the thing about it is that when you find yourself in those situations, the concepts we're going to be sharing in those episodes will actually help you it'll help give you the motivation and the impetus to actually make things right, because it's what you want and because it's what's best for you and what's in alignment with your needs. So that is coming. Anything you want to finish about this? Anything else you want to say before I just suddenly realized I'm wearing green, but you're not wearing purple. We did
I saw that we were doubling the green, like where this is the two tones of the green villain. Right. Like, you know, I thought about it.
I didn't. I was so on somewhere else. So yeah. I'm glad we still represented the villain era with our clothing choices. So that's it for today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode. But between now and then, remember to stay safe, take care of yourself, and continue to meet your own needs. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye, friends.
That's it for today.
If you like what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and give us a written review,
as it will help more people find us.
And remember, just because there's been a villain so far doesn't mean you can't change the story.
Well, shit.
It really is that simple.